Hey, brothers. Wanted to do a review of sorts on the Zeihan Joe Rogan podcast interview and just give my thoughts on some of it. A more professional person would clip in the parts that I'm going to be referencing, but that would take hours, and I'm not going to spend that much time. I'm just going to go through the my take by take as he went through the interview, provide a response regarding whatever it was that he said, and these are going to be not verbatim. Some of this is I tried to get the idea of what he was saying, although some of the words may not be exactly correct. So, pardon me. You can probably point out a few small mistakes, and I may misunderstand and misrepresent something that he's saying. And if that's the case, by all means, let me know. But generally speaking, I found the first hour of this whole conversation just about unbearable and extremely difficult to listen to at all. It was very annoying. After that, he got into stuff that I found more interesting, and I wasn't as opposed or thinking that he is incorrect on what he was saying. So we'll just go ahead and give it a whirl, or give it a start. So the 1 minute and 42 seconds in, he says, Russia has among the worst farmland in the world. And, you know, he may be right about that, but that flies in the face of what I've previously heard and read. It flies quite directly in the face of what I've previously heard and read, which is that the farmland there is actually quite good. They've got very dark soil. So I will grant the infrastructure is built out there to support smaller operations, so that's not built out. But this claim is the first strike in my mind. Like within 1 minute and 42 seconds, I'm already thinking that doesn't match what my understanding is. And granted, he may know more than I do, and I may just be incorrect. But nonetheless, because that goes against what my understanding was, it's a red flag. Russians were always trying to push back through to natural barriers. Yeah, I agree with that. By and large, most places will want whatever natural barriers they can have. America's blessed that we have an ocean. Although once we are no longer the United States, but instead individual areas, that won't necessarily be the case. So that'll make it a little more difficult and interesting. Minute 3, he says Russia must expand way beyond anything presently demonstrated. Way beyond anything presently demonstrated, according to Zeihan. He listed like 10 different countries that he thinks Russia's going to try and conquer and take out and rule over or subjugate. And it strikes me as just wild speculation. There's no. He's taking the axiom or the belief that Russia's going to go to any and all natural land barriers, and they won't stop until they reach a land barrier that they can then hunker down and defend. And I get that point, but I don't think he's correct that it's going to be in absolutely every single direction. I don't think that's something they plan on trying to do. Now, I could be wrong and he could be right, but that I don't see any evidence to support that claim. I do see it that he wants to go to that land barrier on the other side of Ukraine. They also want to get that seaport that they already have a city in, but they're not connected directly to. So which of those surrounding provinces or area countries, entities might he hit? I can't say, but I could certainly see him getting some of those on the way to that port city that they have. But I don't. It just seems like a wild claim, and he doesn't have anything to substantiate that claim. So nothing that he said or listed. And all right, moving from there, on minute 7 and 15 seconds, he says the edge is going towards Ukraine militarily. I thought, how is this like a 6-month-old video back when they were going to say Russia's done in 4 days? No, it's a 14-day-old interview. I mean, this is laughable based on the sources that I tend to read. Although my sources are, of course, biased, and his sources are also biased in a different direction. He should have better sources that account for a lot of the stuff that I've read, so that he could provide some feedback on why some people think X or Y, but this is why that's wrong. He does not. He does not at all. He thinks that Ukraine is winning militarily. Now, I will say that with all of the additional aid that America is now in the process of sending, that Germany is now sending a lot more of their tanks and such of that nature, and Germany's said that we are at war with Russia. Whether or not that was a kerfuffle and a screw-up by that person is mostly irrelevant. NATO countries are getting involved more so and more so, but they've already depleted so many of their resources that it's hard to know exactly what they have left to give that's going to matter. So I just found that comment laughable based on what I've read and what I've seen. Everything I've seen is online, though, so I could be wrong about absolutely everything. As they say, in war, the first casualty is the truth. So, minute 8, Russians have proven they are absolutely incompetent. It's just ridiculous. This guy's, at this point, he's already 8 minutes in, and this guy's lost the majority of his credibility. Now, one can claim that they made some gambits that didn't pan out at the worst, but incompetent? Okay, that's ridiculous. He names a guy named Shoigu as one of the least competent people on the planet. Is only able to get to where he is due to ties to Putin. And everything, he's just making so many broad claims. He doesn't provide any evidence or support. He just says it, that they're all complete fools and idiots, and yet they've managed to do so much so well that doesn't make any sense. You can't possibly be that horrible at everything and have succeeded so wildly at all these things. Nonetheless, that's his claim. We move on to minute 9. All supplies are being moved by rickety trucks. That is effectively what he says, because the train got shot down or destroyed. Not the tracks and such were destroyed. I suspect this is an exaggeration. How much of one, I don't know. It may be very well rooted in truth, and I don't doubt that there are definitely supplies being moved by rickety trucks to some extent. To what extent, I don't know. I suspect that he makes it sound far worse than it is, but I don't know. Minute 9, second to 30. I agree. I don't. He said that the nuclear situation's probably overblown. It's very unlikely, and I agree. I don't think it's likely. Only if forces threaten the homeland, they might do that to defend their homeland area. Sure, that's plausible. At minute 12, he says Russia has lost 100,000 troops, according to Zeihan, while Ukraine has only lost roughly a third of that, so 33,000. That is so far off base from the non-mainstream sources. I provide a link to sonar21.com / has Ukraine's army been reduced by almost 50%, and I'll provide the link in the description below. So go there if you want the link. But it basically says that, well, no, it doesn't say. A lady is quoted as saying that 100,000 troops have been killed. 100,000 Ukrainian troops have died, which implies that there are roughly 300,000 wounded, because per something that they cite, roughly 3 are wounded for every 1 that dies. So that means roughly 400,000 military units. Later in the article, it shows further evidence to suggest the 100,000 dead figure has more evidence to suggest that that is in fact accurate. It also claims as many as 250,000 civilians have been killed, but does admit that they just, what's his face? Zeihan admits, or claims rather, that as many as 250,000 civilians have been killed, but then admits that we just don't know. But that's one heck of a claim, to claim that the Russians have killed 250,000 of civilians. That's just a ridiculously bombastic claim, and he provides he does. He provides evidence. He's saying that there were butcherings, that the Russians did butcherings of cities or the people that they took over, such as in Bucha, which was corroborated. I'm not going to bother going into all the details. I provide a link to a Vox Day article, which he links to another article that just goes over all the evidence that shows how this is such a false flag, and it's so sloppily done. It's not even a good false flag. It's a stupid and a dumb one to anyone that cares to look at the evidence, and it's a damning destruction of that false flag. And you can go look, by all means, think I'm wrong. I hope you think I'm wrong. Go look at the evidence and watch the source material that is provided, assuming it hasn't been wiped from the internet, as they're so quick to do when they can. They, of course, being the powers that be, clown world. Anyhow, so he cites that. He claims that that's effectively claiming that the Russians are going around killing thousands upon hundreds of thousands of of civilians, innocents aside, and then says that the butcherings at Bucha, this guy is either a fool or mouthpiece when it comes to this subject, or both. He has pretty much no remaining credibility around the Ukraine-Russian conflict with me. Maybe his economic views will have more of merit. I don't know, but at this point, I've basically thrown my hands up. This guy, I'm just going to be spending this whole time pointing out where he's dumb and wrong, or at least where my understanding of the situation goes completely in conflict with everything he is saying. Then at minute 13:20, Russians do much worse than the Iraqis did, or are doing much worse than the Iraqis did in 1992. Now, I'm no military historian that is aware of the 1992 Iraqi conflict to an extent that I can do a good comparison, but I have a hard time believing this. Here's a synopsis, and this, now granted, synopsis was put together back in, I believe it was March So if it were to be updated to now, I don't know what it would say. But back in March, they had successfully recovered over 100,000 square kilometers of resource-rich land and incorporated more than 8.5 million Russian-speaking people into the Russian state, while inflicting a casualty ratio on its enemies that exceeds the historical Israel-Arab rate. And despite 6 rounds of anti-Russian sanctions, has made a financial profit on the situation as its enemies' economies crash. I don't see how that would be considered a failure. Maybe it's possible that the Iraqis in 1992, that was just an unbelievably good thing for the Iraqis. So doing worse than them is actually still doing quite good. But I doubt that. I suspect that he's saying that both of them were bad and they did even worse. But I don't know. Either way, he seems to be absolutely incorrect. If you want to do there's also a comparative analysis for those who want to dig into this and read a little more. I'll provide the link. This is on Vox Day. He shows a Ukraine invasion, a comparative analysis between a large number of different conflicts, and shows quite convincingly that what they had accomplished, at least early last year, was nothing short of amazing, despite all the Western media and the clown world media showing or saying that Russia's going to lose. They've already lost. It's just a matter of days with every day. Now, it is worth noting at the bottom of that article, he did say that he thinks the conflict may be over at this rate by the end of March. Though whether that was an actual prediction or just a rhetorical repartee, I'll leave to you to determine for yourself. I suspect it was just being a rhetorical claim, just saying something fanciful, but maybe not. Anyway, at the minute 13 and 30 seconds, so 10 seconds later, he says, if NATO and Russia had a battle right now, casualties would be 1,000 to 1. This is so retarded. That was ridiculous. This man has exposed his complete lack of ability to do military analysis, and he has no business doing any of it. At least not. Again, this is all based on my understanding. I could be wrong, and he could be right, and I could be so far off base. But there's absolutely no mention in this little vomit that he does of facts as he would have it. There's actually absolutely no mention of what would happen with China, with North Korea, Iraq, Brazil, Turkey, any of these other countries whose interests align with Russia. Nothing. He says nothing about it. He doesn't incorporate it at all. Just, oh yeah, NATO would utterly obliterate them. 1,000 to 1. It's just such a stupid thing to say. NATO, for one, is already in this engagement, providing all sorts of supplies and troops. We've had Navy SEALs end up, I say SEALs, plural. It may only be the one Navy SEAL that was on Black Ops. Was on active, what did they call it? Anyway, the Navy SEAL that was killed in Russia, and then our wonderful government had the temerity to dismiss him as having been an active deserter status, and he totally wasn't there by our order. So that man's family, assuming he has one, is totally screwed, and he's basically marked as a traitor to his country because he left, completely blinking on the word. Because he left the country and went to fight for someone else, abandoned, whatever. Anyway, that's just retarded. He's so completely and totally wrong. 1357. If Ukraine falls and Poland is next, there will be a direct fight and Russians will lose, and then there will be a nuclear exchange. Wow, there's an awful lot of certainty there when Russia has hypersonic missiles that they've already proven they can strike past NATO air defenses at will. Better subs than we do. The Russian Belgorod subs, I'll provide a link to a video that goes over some of that below that actually a buddy of mine provided the information on. And their Poseidon, their unmanned subs, which is able to cross oceans, getting to Europe or US with stealth at will and launch incredibly destructive missiles. So, no, to say that it would just be a boom and it's done, it's just, yeah. Anyway, his demographic takes may be fine. I'm unsure how correct he is or isn't without doing more research, but based on him repeating clown world talking points about pretty much everything else so far, I'm inclined to believe he's wrong here too. Claiming their war is so they can simply die off in 40 to 50 years on their own terms and there is nothing else to it, that is just a ridiculous take. Russia, he also claims Russia has been poorly managed and taken a darker turn under Putin. Well, I mean, that may be, but according to the tradingeconomics.com, the World Bank's assessment of the GDP of Russia over the since Putin has come into power, their GDP, I mean, GDP is debatably worthwhile as a metric. One can't deny that their GDP since he came into power has increased quite a bit. Back in 2000, it was 259.71. In 2020, was that 2020? No, it's 2021. It was at 1,775.8. So that's roughly 4, 5, 6. That's roughly a 7x. And granted, 22 years is a long time, but a 7x could hardly be called, oh, you're doing, it's a dark turn and it's doing horrible under Putin. That's 7x is not horrible. Granted, where they came from may have been bad, so it's easy to go up from where they were. But I don't know, it's just, again, he just throws out all sorts of crap. We can also consider their controlling position in uranium with the ability to control Kazatomprom, as well as their natural gas control in the region, which the U.S. is desperately trying to destroy in ways that are a war. With the pipeline that was destroyed almost certainly by us. Almost certainly. Anyone that thinks it was Russia is incapable of critical thought. Or so I would presume. All right, at minute 19:05, he says, I can't say I'm aware of the he mentioned some of the propaganda being used on the Russian populace. I can't say for sure. I don't know what is being used on the populace, so I'll just have to take his word for it, although I don't take his word at all. I think he's wrong about all of this, so I suspect he's wrong again. At minute 20:30, he's saying Putin's health is horrible. While I didn't care much, there was a Zeihan debunk video. I'll provide the link also in the description below. It's on BitChute by Canadian Patriot or something like that. I didn't care for a lot of the way they handled stuff in that video, but nonetheless, the link provided in the notes, I completely agree with their calling out this attempt to paint Putin as near death and calling it projection of Biden's health situation. Zeihan made a bunch of health claims with no basis upon which to make them, except saying he looked puffy, and he tries to get masculine pictures of himself to look virile. He points out that he wears bulletproof vests, as though that's a strange thing to do. Considering how much Clown World is out to kill him, I would be amazed if he went anywhere without one on. That would just strike me as incompetence. And what's the word when you... naivety. Just the unbelievable naivety if he didn't think he needed to protect himself from an assassin's bullet. I fully expect that at some point there's going to be another attempt at such a thing, if there hasn't been a few already. Anyhow, at 20:30, he says he's got the shakes. No evidence except for a little clip they show, and it's like a 1.5 second clip where Putin looks like he's shaking a little bit, and it's very easy to make something look that way if you just take a short clip whenever someone's body's being animated when they do something, and just, if you play this clip at the right time, it's going to look like my body's just shaking. So that's just stupid. That's not a good evidence at all. It's just retarded. All right, 23:30. Putin has so thoroughly purged the intelligence agency that there's probably only one with the guts to try and pull off a coup. Okay, it sounds like he's done a good job of securing his position. I wasn't sure if this was him saying something anti or pro Putin. I didn't really. I mean, if there's an agency and they are likely to try and pull off a coup, wouldn't you want to purge the people in there that would likely do that? If you're the person in power, I don't. Maybe he was saying that he's done a good job there. I don't know. It sounds like doing a good job if you suspect that we're going to try and do something and you believe you're doing the right thing for your nation. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say it's a Christian thing to kill off the bad people within your group necessarily. I don't know. I mean, is it not? Probably not. Maybe just kick them out of the country and say, if you ever come back, we'll just put you down in a chair and kill you. I don't know. Either way, moving on, 24:30. Even though it was clear Russia was degenerating. That's Zeihan said, even though it was clear Russia was degenerating. I think this guy and I have extremely different definitions of degenerating. It's clear that the proverbial West is degenerating morally, and our economic system is, in my opinion, on the verge of catastrophe, with the only remaining question, when. Not if, but when. But Russia depends on few others for much at all. Actually, I don't know. They may depend on people for more stuff than I realize, but they mostly depend on people to buy things from them, and it's energy, which everyone wants because no one wants to not have energy. So they're going to have buyers, and because they have huge amounts of energy commodities and gold, they are likely in a better position than many other Western countries, especially Germany and likely the UK. Once more, just making a huge claim that is unsubstantiated and doesn't appear, by my view, to be accurate at all. At 25:45, I hate the description he makes of children and why people have them, but that's a semantic argument. He's just being bombastic again. 29:22, he says the Chinese education system focuses only on memorization over skill. Wait, he says he's talking about China here, but that's the American system for public education. Anyone that grows up here knows you just memorize the stuff. You memorize how to do the thing, you memorize what the thing is, you memorize the words, you memorize how to do grammar. There's no inventiveness in our school systems anymore. They don't even have shop class in most places where you can learn trades or skills. It's only memorization. And making matters far worse, our colleges are all teaching converged, gender-bending, clown world garbage and brainwashing everyone they can into accepting socialism, communism, sodomy, and other such filthy practices. China's focused on math and science and love of country. I don't care if they don't teach any out-of-the-box thinking or even push it heavily. There is no way two populaces raised on those respective teaching practices come out equal. One comes out retarded, literally, like as in mentally handicapped and held back, and the other comes out quite capable and likely proud of their country rather than hating their own nation's people. So, yeah, I'll just leave that there. At minute 29:30, his information around the labor supply in China versus Mexico was covered well in the video I referenced earlier from the Canadian Patriot. Again, link in the description below at BitChute. Starting at around the 46-minute mark or so, they provide more details, but effectively they say the high-tech, high-level, or mass-produced at high quality, the only place to do that with volume is China. Some things are absolutely good for Mexico, but at scale, Mexico has nothing on China. It's orders of magnitude difference. So for him to say that China has we have no need of them, Mexico's even better now. It's just completely false. Well, no, it's a. If you frame it correctly, he can say that. But if you understand the truth of the matter, that is absolutely false. At minute 30, suggesting China was caught with their pants down and had no idea what Putin would do based on a publicized meeting wherein Putin denied intent to invade Ukraine. And I don't know the meeting he's talking about. Maybe this was a secret meeting where they thought they could level with each other, and the only reason we know this meeting ever existed is because we had super secret spies and we were able to listen with our awesome technology that James Bond worked his way in and recorded the conversation. Well, that would, I guess, be England that would have to have done that, but they'll share the information with us with Five Eyes and all that fun stuff. But this is so stupid, because as though either party could or would be expected to share strategic plans in a public setting. What a ridiculous point. And I don't know, maybe there's more to it than I realize because I don't understand the meaning he's talking about, but that's just, again, another thing where I'm like, this is retarded. Minute 30, second 30, the claim that everyone quit semiconductor work within 24 hours of something Biden did. As covered, again, in the Canadian Patriot video, they go over that whole thing. It's unfounded. Just once more, he's espousing things that are not, to my knowledge, true, and claiming it as though it's empirically true. And this is why China is just, they're dead in the water. When, in fact, all the things that he's using to make the case for why they're dead in the water are factually incorrect. He's wrong. So if anyone can provide sources to prove that he is in fact right, then please do. All right. Then 3120. China is going away this decade. If they were sanctioned the way Russia is, 500 million would be dead, and there would be a deindustrialization collapse within a year. Wow, that is quite the claim. Considering how they've weathered the whole COVID shutdowns without collapsing in a year. Matter of fact, this is year 3 that they've been going through that situation, and they haven't collapsed. They're actually puttering along seemingly mostly fine, and granted they don't have the sanctions, but they're also not doing half of the things they normally do as far as trade, output, input, etc. Those are made up numbers. It may be far less or far more, I don't know, but I do know that they've had lots of shutdowns constantly for years now. So I fail to see how this timetable plays out when they have access to more resources in their immediate vicinity than pretty much anyone and anywhere else. And the power to take it, should it come to that, their power to take those resources, should it come to that, I suspect they could stave off. So with that power, I suspect they could stave off much of this proposed collapse quite easily. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm going to stop saying maybe I'm wrong. Also, any such sanctioning wouldn't just result in collapse for China, but also the world at large. And this is another part. So he says if we did that to China, oh, they'd be dead. 500 million people die if we do this, so they know that they can't do anything. If we did that to them, we would lose tons of people too. We would lose all sorts of stuff. So they can no more do that to China effectively, the powers that be, than they convince all their own populace to live without 40% of the stuff people are used to buying and relying on. Now, I made up the 40% number, but it turns out I looked this up and I friggin' nailed it. China is the leading maritime importer for the United States by an impressive margin, accounting for 42% of all goods shipped in the U.S. Link provided in the description below. So most of it is machinery and electrical, so be ready for our systems collapse as we lack the tools to repair or rebuild once anything breaks down. We won't have so much that we rely on and expect to have. And we'll have no way to get it if we did that to China. And then if China collapsed, then it would basically just be dominoes. Again, it's just ridiculously flat analysis, given as though it's simple and factual. Anyway, minute 32 and 50. Their own chip manufacturing plants are among the worst in the world, not the best, and they don't even know how to operate them because the U.S. people all left. Again, that wasn't verbatim. I brought some of his sentences in different orders, but that's effectively what he's saying. And he's building lies on top of lies. I already went over those various points. The people didn't leave, at least not in the mass and quantity that he advised or said. And they do have the ability to run the plants. They're running them now. Just poor analysis. Minute 33. Once more he was treading out that Zai doesn't listen to anyone. He has no good advisors because no one will tell him the truth about anything or they'll be shot if he doesn't like it. His understandings of China's inner workings flies directly in the face of most of what I've read and heard from sources that Vox uses. Now, I will admit I rely heavily on Vox's sources, and that's because I found him to be accurate and to be well-reasoned in everything that I've ever researched that he wrote. And I have researched a lot because I have friends that are annoying and they call me out, and so I have to look and check and make sure, which makes them valuable, and that's why I love them. Well, that's not why I love them, but I do love them. Anyway, it just flies directly in the face of that. So wherein two of his advisors, Z's advisors, Vox sees as some of the best ones alive in the world. At least I think it was two of them. Considering how they've solidified power, kicked out clown world influence, and successfully poisoned the minds of their enemies' youth with TikTok, among other things, here in America, I'd say that they've been unbelievably successful. Of course, I buy into the crazy theory. It's not of course that I buy, but I buy into the crazy theory that some of those additional buildings, or if not most or all of them, that they were building weren't strictly for the Chinese, but actually were instead for those that were planning on fleeing to China after engorging themselves on everything that they could take from the West or America. But then when Zai cleaned house of all the corruption or non-Chinese influence, and he has kept the clown world from taking back power, which they just recently tried to do last year with the election, but they did not succeed. Assuming, of course, that that was a attempt by Clown World. I suspect it was, but maybe not. Anyway, it's not that I like that China succeeded in poisoning the minds of our youth here in America with TikTok and all that garbage, but it's hard to deny that they have. China gonna China. Anywho, minute 34. Our intelligence is so good that we can listen to every single thing Russia says ever. That's not verbatim. I would totally buy that they can get their hands on a lot of intel, but not all. Or Russia's efforts would have been stopped at every turn rather than being as successful as they have been. Though it does stand to reason that they've been able to upset some of the things that would have been more successful than they were with some intelligence that they've been able to glean. So I'm not going to say they don't have any, but once more, he's wildly exaggerating the claim. Then he says, we listen to everything they say in China's offices, but no one ever says anything. That's, again, just another huge claim with no proof, just a bunch of words. And once more, with the... He goes back into the only people around Zai are flunkies, and none of them have a history of being competent. Everyone else's government is just a big old retard, and they're all complete losers. If that is true, then how are they destroying America's culture without stepping foot on our soil? They're destroying our country without 1 foot of military action against us. No guns are being sent here by them. They're just letting us kill ourselves with all of our garbage that we're getting into. Anyway. I say kill ourselves. They are influencing it all over the place. How they solidified power so completely while maintaining their own national interest and rejecting wokeism so absolutely while we drown in it. It strikes me as projection. Minute 36 claims 7 variants of COVID are going through China right now, and they're likely to lose 1,500,000 people this year, and that their medical facilities are already struggling, likely to fail. Again, then says their domestically engineered vaccines don't work well in round 1, but says people are moving on to the West's model that have worked better, except that we already know the West models are a dismal failure, and China as a whole is almost certainly better off just because they never touched it. So Got nothing for you there. Minute 37:50, at least 50% more communicability than measles. All the COVID variants. Didn't he just say they have 7 different variants with no idea what the data is around them? Yes, he did. He's just tossing numbers fresh from pulling them out of his butt. I want something to back up his wild claims he's consistently making, because he's just, here's a whole bunch of random crap. Believe it, because, just because I said so, and I'm a bigwig and I'm important. Anyway, I don't believe anything he says. Anyway, 42:25. His prediction for the drop in Russian oil, despite overwhelming demand and the needs for it, is very optimistic from the Western perspective. He said 1 million barrels with this situation, and then because of no insurance, it's going to be another 1.5 million, and maybe 2 million. India and China, he did say that India and China are going to try and basically do something to counteract that lack of insurance. They both have such incredibly strong interest in this and getting that oil. I find it very hard to believe that they won't be able to figure out a solution that gets around Clown World's attempts to stymie them. They've been doing it so far. I don't know why they would suddenly fail because of one more dumb thing that the West does. But maybe he'll be right. It has to happen eventually. He has to be right with something he says. Well, we have to get there. 45:45. This is one of the things about dictatorial powers. They believe their own stories. That perfectly describes America, or the West's rather, and our mistaken belief in our own power and military superiority being unquestionable. We will win wars. No, we haven't won a war since World War II. We've lost constantly. Anyway, minute 47. I agreed with what he said here. I don't remember what it was. U.S. Oh, talking about the U.S. and we have a lot of advantages. Our demographic breakdown and retreat from God is destroying us, but geographically, we have a lot of advantages. We've got so much going for us if we can just get rid of the failures that are in offices, or just outright replace our government. Minute 49:30. I don't trust his analysis on how quickly China will break down simply because he's off base on so many other things. So I don't know the facts and figures though, so I can't provide any to go against what he says here at 49:30. I don't remember what it was. At minute 50:30, I do agree when he said that we'll have to build things back up in our own nation, and I'm excited by the possibility and probability. It will likely be a very painful change, but overall it'll be a good one for America, presuming our government doesn't stay as it is now and destroy everything, which is their primary concern. At minute 53, he talks about our relationship with Mexico, and I agree, it will play a large role in our future, as will and can Canada, so long as we can all get rid of Clown World. Oh my goodness, it'll be amazing what we can do, because we have access to so much. If we would just throw off the shackles of Clown World. I just don't know how that'll happen. I do suspect it will. I just don't know how. Minute 54. Agree on his take on drugs. Silver bullets, backfiring, the lack of rule of law being the root cause of a lot of this. He finally starts to say stuff that I'm like, okay, I don't have to stop every 3 minutes to write a paragraph as to why he's dumb. That's an exaggeration. He's just a mouthpiece for Clown World with most of that China-Russia stuff. Or so it seems to me. Minute 62. Interesting take that it's the drug trade coming in and taking over that reduced a lot of gun violence as they set up shop and made it peaceful to do their business. I have no idea if any of that is true. All of this conversation around Mexico was fascinating stuff, though how wrong I think he was on everything in the first hour, I hesitate to believe he is right about most of this or any of it. But maybe he is. And it was a cool story. I don't believe much anything this guy says at this point. Minute 70, he talks about how America can emerge from this in fantastic condition. Oh, see, there we go. I agree. Though I think there will be a huge breakdown first, and it will be very painful. Minute 74. See, this is, again, where he gets into the differences between his position and Vox's. Vox says that Zai was meting out massive amounts of corruption when he did the purging, whereas Zeihan claims it was self-interested purging that has destroyed the future of China by getting rid of any and all who may have been competent enough to do something post-Z, or Zai. I doubt his take far more than I doubt Vox's, so once more, I suspect he's quite wrong, but... Minute 76, I agree with his take on EVs completely, and those related topics. At minute 80, the bulk of climate change science was settled in the 80s. You know what, I don't even care. He agrees with a lot of the other stuff, a lot of my other positions on EV, and that it's just a bunch of nonsense. So I'm just going to move forward. He does say, by all means, drive an EV, just don't pretend you're an environmentalist. That was fun. Minute 88, his knowledge of nuclear. He talks about it in a lot of the disposal stuff, saying it's nowhere near as a nice a solution as people like to think it is. I think he is largely incorrect on a lot of that, but I do agree where he says that it's a matter of time because it takes forever to build those things because we have so much regulation. Even if we got rid of a lot of the regulation, it would still take a lot of time. So it's not a silver bullet because it takes time. But if we start now, man, we would be better off. As Bitcoin stuff, I'm fine with. I don't trust Bitcoin either. Not at least until Tether collapses. Then maybe. Anyway, that was all. 5 pages. Way too much talking. Have a great night. Oh, God bless.